Cool. We just talked about private methods like hashtag creator here. Now let's talk about static methods and properties. Okay, so now what if I take away this hash name? So now it's public, but I put static in front of it. What do you think happens? Well, when you put static in the class constructor, the methods or properties will be placed directly on the constructor itself. What does that mean? That means we can no longer do myShape dot creator. It will say undefined. Okay. Now, how do we get the constructor? One, we can say myShape dot constructor fill up, or we can just go by the name of the constructor itself, rectangle, like this. Cool, right? Now, let's talk about static methods. What if you have a method that says is a square, okay? And then this is just going to return if this dot length is triple equals to this dot width, then it's a square. Okay. So now if we say my shape dot is a square, we're going to get true because we passed in 10 and 10. What if we put static in front of this? Now remember, we can't do this. We're going to get an error because it now lives on the constructor. Okay. Now can we do my shape dot constructor dot is a square? Yeah, but it's false. Why is that? Well, this is because how the this keyword works and how static works. Static means this, all of this is now on the rectangle constructor. When you call it, it's calling it from the rectangle constructor and it's looking for this dot length, which does not exist on the constructor. Okay? And neither does this dot width. They're undefined. So that's why it returns false. So you've got to be really careful where you're putting your methods, whether to use static or not. Now, what's an example of a built-in static method? It's things like array.isArray. Right? We can pass in an array, true. But if we do const ARR is equal to 1, 2, 3, and then we do AR.isArray, we're going to get undefined. Why is that? Because when a constructor creates an instance like myShape cannot borrow methods and properties from its constructor. It can only use its own methods and properties and its prototypes methods and properties, not the ones on its constructor itself. Right? So I would not use is a square as a static method. Okay? But what if you really want to make this to work? Well, you can do like array.isArray. You can take in arguments A and B, and then you can just return A triple equals to B. And then now you can do rectangle dot is a square. And then if we pass in two of the same numbers, we're going to get true. Otherwise, we're going to get false. Okay? Now, let's talk about private static methods and properties. Now, to make these private, all we need to do is add the hashtag. But let's see what happens. Okay, when I open up rectangle, I open up the constructor right here. And you can see that now these are private. And just like regular private properties and methods, these will not appear in a for in loop or on get own property descriptors. They are protected by the engine itself. Okay, but why is this useful? Well, now, because of this, that it's private now, let's do a getter for it. And then by using the getter, we can actually improve this static method. Let's see. So we're going to get is a square. Okay. And then this can be a function. And then what is this going to return? Well, it's going to return this dot constructor, which means rectangle dot hashtag is a square right here. But now we can actually pass in this dot length and this dot width. Like that, okay? And this works because this get will be on the instance that we construct, okay? So when we call it on the instance and it looks for the this.length and this.width, it will get it from whatever that we provided right here. And then it will pass those values as A and B onto the constructor's function. Okay, so let's see now. Now if we do my shape dot is a square, remember now that we use a getter, when we cannot use curly braces to call it. We just press enter. Cool, right? Now if we try const my shape is 10 length and 1 width is a square, it's going to return false. Right? Cool. Okay, so the overall message is that it's up to the developer. It's up to you. What do you want to keep as private? And do you want your users to be able to access that private property or not? If you do, you need a getter. Okay? If you want your user to set the value of your private property, then you need a setter. As a reminder, once again, a setter cannot set private and private static methods. Okay? Let's try that. So let's do set is a square. And remember, setters has to take in one argument always. I'll just call this string. And then I'm going to put this dot constructor dot hashtag is a square is equal to string. Okay, so now can we do my shape is a square, and then we use equal. Remember, when you're calling a setter, you have to use equal. And then let's just pass in string, blah, blah, blah. See, the engine actually protects it from being changed. It is not writable. And no, you cannot change this writable. It's not the same as the writable in object.define properties. This is protected by the engine. Okay? Now, a reminder, only methods, meaning functions, are protected from the setter. If this was not a function and instead it's an array, so let me do that, is equal to an array that just says I am an array. So that means I'm going to have to take this off. And okay. So now if we do my shape dot is a square, its current value, thanks to the getter, says I am an array, and it's an array. Now, if we set it to a random string and we check it again, it's now that random string. Okay. So arrays work, objects work, strings, numbers, everything works except for type function.